Honestly, it's so often that I get clients who will come to me, ask me, they're thinking about preparing their house, getting their house ready to go on the market. And they're saying, hey, Kev, should I go put granite countertops in my kitchen, or what should I do to get my house ready? And almost always my answer is to be very careful and to always be cognitive of what you are going to actually see a return on investment. So I'm making this video for anybody who's considering selling their house to help you understand the type of things that you should do and the type of things that you should never do if you're getting your house ready to list in terms of an ROI. So what I've done is I've put together my top 12 things that all sellers should skip if they're getting ready to sell their house. The first thing that I want to talk about is the psychology of a buyer. And this is where a real estate agent's value really comes into play, because we represent both sides of a real estate transaction very regularly. So if I'm representing a buyer or a seller, a lot of the value as a real estate professional that I bring to the table is my understanding of the anatomy of the other side. So if you're a seller getting ready to sell your house, you have to understand what the buyers are thinking about, what the buyers care about, and what they absolutely don't care about before you make any investments to get your house ready for sale. One of the most important things is the first impression. And in many cases, in my experience, buyers will know whether or not they're seriously interested in a house within seconds in many cases of walking in the house. They are looking for things like, is the house clean? Is it well kept? Does it smell? Any kind of odors is a big deal when buyers are touring houses. And, how does the lighting feel? Does the lighting feel bright, clean, make the house feel big? These are the type of things that whether a buyer will tell you or not, they are considering when they are actually seeing the house for the first time. Now, most buyers don't expect that the house is going to be perfect. That's not a very realistic expectation for a buyer to have. But what most buyers are looking for are major material defects with the property. So they're looking for active roof leaks. They're looking for, problems with the foundation, major electrical problems. What they're not really paying too much attention to or really care too much about are things like leaky faucets or, minor, what we refer to as deferred maintenance. Generally, a buyer's expectation are going to be that everything be working as it should. And that's a realistic expectation to have. So a lot of times sellers just don't understand where the return on investment might be, and they have unrealistic expectations in regards to, if they spend this amount of money on, a particular thing, that they are going to see either a return on investment or they're going to get that all back. And it's very easy for a seller to sort of over improve the house, and that diminishes their equity when they're selling their house. So in preparing for this video, I dug deep, obviously, into all of the data and the average cost to do, certain things to your house. And it became very apparent to me that it is much better to do a simple refresh or, a slight upgrade than it is to do major remodels when you're getting ready to sell your house. The obvious disadvantage is that if you're doing a major remodel, you are taking on a lot more risk. You are tying up a lot of capital. You're delaying your getting your house sold, and it generally has a much lower return on investment. Where if you just do some simple minor fixes, some, paint and just a freshening up, you're tying up way less capital, you're taking up less time getting to market, and you're actually preserving your equity, which is obviously what you want to do as a seller. So what are my 12 things that I think that every seller should skip when they're getting ready to sell their house? Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to rank them from the lowest priority to the highest priority. And the first one is, don't go replacing all of your interior doors. Unless your interior doors are all busted up and they don't work well, buyers simply don't care. They don't notice interior doors in most cases. As long as they work well, they open and close as they should, a buyer is not going to make an adjustment when they are considering their offer strategy for interior doors. Skip replacing the interior doors. The next one is replacing your driveway or doing major driveway repairs. The reason is that appraisers don't make any adjustment for something like this, and it can be very expensive. So unless your driveway, again, all of these are going to be, if there's an exception where you have major problems with any of these particular things, it might make sense to actually go ahead and upgrade them or replace them. But for normal cracking and stuff, unless your driveway is heaved up and has major cracks in it, skip any repairs like this. 10 is high-end lighting fixtures. Buyers and appraisers do not make any sort of adjustment in their evaluation of your property if you upgrade to the $1,000 chandelier in comparison to just putting in a nice and functioning $100 light fixture. This is just not going to move the needle, so don't go doing that. 9, don't go upgrading to the super high-end appliances if you're going to replace your appliances. Unless you have an already super high-end kitchen, just go get something that's functional. That's what the buyers are going to look for. They are not going to adjust their offer strategy if you have super high-end refrigerator and stove in relation to just a refrigerator and stove that look and work good. Number 8 is don't go replacing all of your windows if your windows don't need to be replaced. Again, the theme is, do they work as they should? If all of the windows are working as they should and they don't have broken seals or any kind of defect with them, don't go replacing all of your windows. You are just not going to see a high return on investment, and you're probably not even going to get your money back. Don't go replacing all of your windows. Now we're getting into the bigger ticket items, and the first one is don't go adding a 3-season room or some sort of like screened in porch if you don't already have one. If you already have one, they're great, and some buyers like them and some buyers don't, but what you're not going to see is a return if you go build one thinking that it's going to have mass appeal. You could, in contrast, you could install a nice deck or a patio for the fraction of the price and still give a lot of the same functionality and have a much better return on investment. So unless this is already a feature that your house actually has with it, skip this. Don't go adding a 3-season room if you don't have one. Number 6, do not convert your garage into living space if it's going to leave you without a garage. Where I live in Michigan, garages are very important because we have such cold climate during the winter. But what you're not going to see is a massive return on investment when you compare a house that offers a garage with a house that offers no garage but a few more square feet. So if you have a garage and you're considering switching it over to an interior living footage and leaving that house with no garage, this is going to be an investment that you're almost certainly not going to see any return on. Number 5 seems to be a more common theme that I'm seeing in the market a lot, and that is people who are taking a smaller bedroom and actually blowing out a wall or making it a nice like master suite closet, but then subtracting one bedroom from their house. You are almost never going to see any kind of return on this investment by the time you put in all the work and do all of that and then diminish your value by actually having one less bedroom. Most often, this is not going to move the needle for a buyer more than if the house offered one more bedroom. So this is another one that I think every seller should skip. Number 4 is don't go doing a major blowout high-end kitchen remodel just for the sake of selling your house. Now, everybody always says that, kitchens sell the house, and that's true. If the house has a nice kitchen, it is almost always more appealing to buyers. However, buyers' taste are going to be very subjective, and they might not have the same taste as you. So by the time you go do this, and by the way, remodeling a kitchen is extremely expensive. By the time you go spend all of that money, pick out all of the finishes, do all of the work, if you're doing it just for the sake of trying to add more value to your house, you're almost certainly not going to see a return on investment. My best advice would be to just spruce up the kitchen that you have, make it clean, make it functional, make it nice, and make it appealing, but don't go do the big blowout full kitchen remodel. You're not going to see a return on that investment. Number 3 is sort of in the same vein as number 4, and that is don't go doing a high-end bathroom remodel or master suite bathroom remodel. Again, functionality is what the buyers are really going to care about. A really nice bathroom is going to be a perk, but it's not going to move the needle enough to offset the cost of doing this massive remodel. So if you think that you need to do a really high-end remodel on one or more of your bathrooms because you want to add value to your house, this is not the one. Number 2 is in-ground swimming pools. And this is a question that I get asked all the time, obviously from sellers who have a swimming pool. And that is, does my swimming pool add value to the house? And the short answer is maybe, but you never know. It really depends on the buyer that ends up buying your house, because just as many buyers that are going to love a swimming pool are going to see it as a liability issue. They're going to see it as a maintenance issue. So just as many people who like swimming pools are going to not like swimming pools. So if your house doesn't already have a swimming pool, it doesn't make any sense to make this investment to install a swimming pool that half of the market is going to see as a negative and half is going to see as a positive. So if you're looking for return on investment, this is one that you definitely don't want to do when you're getting ready to sell your house. And then the last one is a major upscale high-end master suite addition or remodel. These can be extremely expensive depending on the finishes and depending on the size and the amenities that your master suite is going to have. But again, buyers just don't care if it's a nice master suite versus a high-end master suite. If you have a nice master suite, that's great. As long as it functions well and, has a general appeal to most buyers, you're probably going to be in good shape. But what you shouldn't do is go building an addition on your house or something like that in order to build a big master suite, because it's just not going to move the needle. So definitely skip this one. You will diminish tons of the equity in your house if you go building an addition just for the sake of trying to make your home more valuable. So those are my 12 tips that are based on my research when I was looking into what sellers shouldn't do when they're getting ready to sell their house. So what are the common themes across these? The main one is that anything that has a super high capital outlay prior to listing your house is generally going to have the most risk and the lowest return on investment, which obviously leads to diminished equity. And when you're selling your house, that equity needs to be the most important thing that you're focused on, because you only get one chance to cash out on your house. Also, that buyer's taste is personal. Not all buyers have the same taste as you might have. So you want to try to make it as neutral and as easy for a buyer to do what they want with the house, because that is going to generally have more appeal than you just hoping that all of the buyers happen to love your taste and your colors and your finishes. So you got to understand that every buyer is a little bit different, and your objective is to appeal to as many of them as possible. Also, you got to know, what do appraisers care about and how do they make adjustments? Because almost every buyer is getting a mortgage, and every buyer who's getting a mortgage is going to have the house appraised, and the house appraisal value has to equal or exceed the final negotiated gross sales price. So you need to understand what the appraisers care about, because if you go spend $250,000 on a new kitchen, for example, and then the appraiser just doesn't necessarily give it $250,000 worth of value, you could run into serious problems. So understand what appraisers really care about. And lastly, understand that in many cases, adjusting your pricing strategy is actually going to net you a lot more proceeds at the end when you compare it to a actual risk outlay to making those repairs prior to listing your house, rather than just reducing your price by a little bit. So what I want everybody who's watching this to take away from this video is that protecting your equity is the number one most important thing when you're selling your house. And you don't want to put yourself in a scenario where you are remodeling someone else's home just for maybe those investments that you make to be undone after closing. So try to understand what you're going to get as a return on investment, or make sure that you get your money back to be able to compete in the market. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, please give it a like and a share. And as always, thanks for watching.